Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amour de Soi Wellness, and Donovon Jenson is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Happy Talks. My name is Dr. Alice, and this is my awesome co-host, Donovan. And today we are talking about how does fun fit in with happiness? So, Donovan, what are your thoughts about fun and happiness?
So the first thing that I think of is doesn't really seem possible. I don't know, maybe if we think about it more, but it doesn't seem possible to have fun without being happy. Like, I don't know what the scenario is where it's like, that was so fun and I'm not happy about it. You know, like those seem kind of, happiness sort of seems like a precursor or like a necessary component of having fun. But I will definitely say, I don't think the opposite is true, right? Like, I don't think you have to be having fun to be happy.
Totally.
And I do actually think it's something we've talked about a bunch of times, but I do think it is a trap or a pitfall that people can fall into mentally, where they think that because they're not having fun all the time, right? Like this sort of heightened emotional experience, that there's something wrong with them, or like they can't be happy or whatever else. Those are some of the first things that come to mind. What about for you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that idea that, fun generally leads to happiness or is associated with happiness, but just because you're not having fun doesn't mean you're not happy. And that, we've talked about a lot in previous episodes of how, having structures and routines actually can promote happiness. Maybe not for everyone, but generally when you discover those routines, like, eating well, sleeping, getting exercise, generally it's not necessarily fun for me, but it's like a good part of what helps sustain my happiness in the long term. But as far as like, I think it is a good idea to integrate fun into your life in some capacity. But to what degree, that could vary from person to person. And I was like racking my brain of what was the last fun thing I did. And I'm actually drawing a blank right now. Let me think, unless you count watching White Lotus. Or not White Lotus, but Black Mirror that we just had the new season released. That was fun to watch with my husband and brother at the same time. But I'm like, fun? I think there's different degrees of it too. Like taking my dogs to the park can be fun just because I'm not having the fun, but they're having the fun. And that brings happiness. I don't know if that counts. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that sort of thing counts. I agree in the sense that, as with many things we talk about, fun sort of exists on a spectrum, right? Like, you even hear people give responses to things like, "Oh, it's not the most fun thing I've ever done, but it was, a good time," or whatever. Like, people even already sort of talk about it on a spectrum. So it is a little bit different than some of the things we've talked about, where I think it may be a more natural mindset for people to fall into. But I agree in the sense that, like, it seems like you need to have some amount of fun in your life to have a sustainable level of happiness, but it doesn't have to be a super frequent occurrence at a high intensity, right? Which is to say that, like, if you're doing the smaller things like walking your dog and like that's fun, like maybe it's not the peak of fun, it's not like the most fun thing you've ever done,
right?
But it is like falls in this more like fun and pleasant category. I think it's really hard to be happy if you have zero of those things, right? Like, I can think back on times in my life where I was very depressed or miserable or unhappy, and the general structure of my life did not have any fun really built into it, right? Like, not even the small stuff. There's not even like banter or like things like that. Like, it was just like these long periods of like excessive work or studying or whatever else with no breaks of any other kind. And so talk about this all the time, but I think this is another thing that we have to find balance with, right? Because like, if you don't find ways to include fun, whatever that means for you, and at whatever intensity, I think it's very difficult to have sustainable long-term happiness.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's almost like I see fun as a break from the typical routines that we generally build, because yeah, routines can get a little mundane sometimes. And I did start to think of some things that are fun. Like we went to LA for the baby moon about a month ago, and that was fun to kind of explore and eat good food and just kind of have some downtime and exploration. And that's something we don't obviously do frequently. I mean, we travel is generally one of those fun activities for me. But then we recently also did the Bottle Rock Festival, which was, yeah, it's not like a thing that you do like every weekend or something like that. It was just kind of like a special occasion type of thing. And I think having things that are unique and special kind of make it more fun, because if I was to do that every weekend, I think it wouldn't be as exciting and fun, if that makes sense.
Yeah, as you're talking about it, I'm sort of trying to like build out some categories, or there's some categories like forming in my head, which is like
Yeah.
novelty a lot of time can be fun because it's like it gets you into a different state of mind than you're used to just by the very nature of what it is, you know. So like traveling fits in that because a lot of times it's new places, new stuff. You generally, I mean, some people go to the same place every year to travel, but a lot of times it's like new experiences, new stuff like that. I think novelty is one of it. I think pleasure or just like nice things that sort of feel nice can fall into the bucket of fun. I'd be curious what else you think, like what are ways to generate fun, or like how would you define it?
You know, I kind of it's sad because I kind of associate like kids having more fun than adults. So it's just like I'm like, do we have that much fun? Because like my niece who just turned 8 recently, for her 8th birthday, she went to Six Flags and just rode a bunch of roller coasters. And I'm like, yeah, that would be fun for an 8-year-old. For me as a grown adult, I'm like, I don't know if I find that fun at this age, or well, what is considered fun for me at this age. I think there's just like, I guess when you're younger, there's more things and experiences that are obviously going to be new to you because you're younger and you haven't had those experiences. So there's more opportunity for unique and different and fun experiences. But at the same time, you can, and that also makes me think, even like at a younger age when everything is like brand new, like babies and toddlers can find, I remember babysitting once, like just babysitting like a baby, and turning on the water faucet was like fascinating and exciting and fun for them. And I just turned it on and off like multiple times. And that was just like a thrill. And so I think age definitely is a factor, because the novelty of some things wear off. Like you turn on a faucet all the time, and I don't like freak out with excitement these days because I do it every day. So I think that's a factor, but you know, I think there's always new experiences to be had, but it just maybe takes more effort to seek them out because you've already had a lot of experiences the older you get.
Yeah, I think that resonates for me as well, right? Like the more familiar you are with things, the less impact they have in terms of just like they're not as novel.
Yeah.
Another thought that came to mind as you're sort of talking about kids, and I think this ties into sort of having fun, is it seems like kids are much more naturally primed to be mindful, right? Or to be present with whatever the experience is. I was thinking specifically about like, you know, like kids, if they're going to an amusement park, are thinking about like, I'm going to go on this ride. Like this ride is going to be awesome. And that's what they're focused on. And the adults that I've gone with are focused on like, oh God, food is going to be so expensive. The lines are going to be super long.
So long.
Like, yeah, right. Those are the first things I sort of thought of too.
Yeah, totally.
So I think another component of it is like, for the majority of people, or at least the ones I know, it seems like as you get older, you become less present, and it's much easier for you to get focused on other things that reduce the fun, right? Because I thought about it in terms of like, if I went to an amusement park right now with the intention of like, I'm just going to focus on the rides and like that experience, am I going to care about the rest of the stuff? I'm just going to focus on like how
Mhm.
fun that will be. I was
Yeah.
like, just as a thought experiment, I'm like, I think I would have a lot more fun than if I just went without like putting that mindset out first.
Mhm.
So I think, and I think it applies to a lot more situations I've been in, but I'm like, oh wow, if I really focus on being present for the things that have been fun for me in the past,
Mhm.
I can probably get more fun out of them because I'm not getting dragged away by other thoughts of like, oh, like if I go to play soccer or something, like these other thoughts like this is just for exercise or like this is productive or whatever these things are that aren't the actual like focus on the experience itself.
Mm. Yeah, you make a really good point, and I didn't think of that, but it makes a lot of sense. And that's actually a principle in a lot of mindfulness practices is like, our brain drags our thoughts all over the place, and usually those thoughts aren't productive, and it kind of takes us away from being like in the moment and present in the moment. And yeah, I think if we were more intentional and focused on being in the moment, because yeah, similarly to you, I think of like, oh, going to an amusement park. I think of like all the things I'm going to complain about. Yeah, the price, the parking, the lines, and food. It just is like, ooh, and it takes away from the happiness and the fun that potential of fun that I could be having. And even last week we went to the pool because it was super hot in Sacramento, like it hit 90, and I wasn't even really thinking about it being a fun experience, although there were plenty of kids there, so I'm sure they were having a fun experience. I was thinking about practical reasons of cooling down from being so hot was my main concern, and I was just like, wow, that's not really a fun way to view it. It was relaxing, but it was more just like, okay, I have to make sure I find a spot in the shade to relax because I'll get too hot and then I might sunburn and then it'll be sucky and then I'll be miserable later. So it was, yeah, there's a lot of like extra noise when we're having those experiences, and I'm not focused on like, oh man, I could just relax in the pool and just let go of all the other stressors in my life. And I think that would have been a much more fun experience.
Yeah, because I think as we get older, you have more of the logistical burden of doing stuff, right? As a kid, you don't have to worry about parking. You sort of like you don't have to worry about how much things cost, right? You have to worry about like I'm gonna ask for this and hopefully I get it, but like it's not the same
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
uh responsibility or burden of like making decisions
Yeah.
around all these things. Like you can just fully focus on the experience. So as I'm thinking about this more and more, I actually think moving forward for like the next couple set of things that I'm going to try to do that are fun or potentially fun, I think I'm going to try to knock out as much of, if not all the logistics beforehand, so that
Mm-hmm.
I can focus as much as possible on sort of like the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know because it's sort of a new idea to me that I just stumbled upon as we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
But similarly to you, like I feel like I do a lot of things like go to the pool when it's hot, but not because I think it'll be fun, but because I think it'll be practical, which is like
Right.
I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I don't
Yeah.
like there's also another way to look at it that would probably induce more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from kids and kind of getting back in I mean, yeah, I appreciate all my adult life experience, but I realize it can be a drag in some respects too. And when I go to the pool and see all these kids having like a blast and fun, and I'm just like, yeah, all right. It's nice and cool. Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of view it. Mhm.
I do think the path to get there is a little bit harder than when you're younger because
Yeah,
again the novelty piece is something, right? Like if
yeah,
you've
that's
been to
true.
the pool a million times in your life,
Hmm.
it's not one of the, when you're like 10 or something, going to the pool might be one of like
Hmm.
20 experiences you've had
Right.
doing that. And at that small of a number, like it's still going to be substantially novel.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that especially in times that I have been lacking fun like at all or
Hmm.
mostly,
Yeah.
or been doing things that I used to think were fun, but they don't feel fun anymore. I
Hmm.
think it has largely been a problem of sort of focus and attention and mindset. because I'd often find myself in sort of some of these situations. So for example, like going out with new friends, right?
Mhm.
Like so many of those times, instead of fully engaging in that moment, I've been just sitting in my head like, oh, I don't know if I like these people. I don't know if I want to hang out with them. Like, should they be my friends? Should I ask them to hang out another time? Instead of just being like, cool, I'm here with these people, and like
Yeah.
I will lean into that and fully engage with what's going on. So I think it's an interesting connection worth kind of trying to like focus in on and enhance.
Yeah, definitely. And it just having this conversation with you has me realize that it's not, I mean, the activity itself can be perceived as fun, but it's really like the things you were talking about, mindset and, awareness and all of that can really make the difference on the degree of fun. Even like, yeah, people like kids can find fun out of things that most adults would not. And it's a matter of, yeah, maybe the activity doesn't matter and maybe we can approach things with more fun. Like even the routine habits that we already know. I'm like, can I make that more fun? Can I make sleep more fun? I do like sleep. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can make exercise more fun by just not complaining so much. I don't know. Yeah, that's just something I'm gonna have to ponder about throughout my week.
I have sort of a tangentially related question, which is I'm curious if you, when you find yourself, like on top of your meditation routine or being more mindful or whatever else, interested or finding more enjoyment in random small things.
Um, I mean, I say I enjoy my meditation practice because it's just I don't see it as like a fun thing to do. It's more about like, oh, it's giving me an opportunity to rest, to be mindful in a different capacity, to kind of just focus in on being present. Uh, but does it make me appreciate the smaller things? I mean, I think it possibly contributes to me appreciating the smaller things, but I think it's a multitude of factors that kind of contribute to me appreciating. And then I realized that, yeah, I'm not like 100% perfect at appreciating the small things. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that I don't, I'm not even aware of how not appreciative of things, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because for me, when I'm like way on top of my meditation and mindfulness stuff, I find myself in like a lot more interested and fascinated and at a low level, like having fun with
Mm-hmm.
really mundane things that I take for granted all the time, which
Mm.
is to say things like, um, like if I have like a lid with a locking mechanism or something that I've like opened a million times,
Yeah.
like if I'm more mindful, there will be times where I'll spend just like, a few minutes just like looking at like the mechanics of it and being like, no, this is like really interesting. Like some of the layers of the world of like abstraction kind of
Mm-hmm.
go away. And I just tend to notice like random things that I find much more interesting than I usually do,
Mm-hmm.
that I normally take for granted all the time. And it often culminates in me being like having sort of like appreciation or gratitude or whatever else because I'm just like, this thing is really cool. Like it's cool that somebody made this.
Yeah.
But the other interesting part of that is like if I'm not doing a mindfulness or meditation practice, um, I never notice those things. Like it is 100% correlated for me, noticing and like paying attention to those small things in my environment with me actually putting an effort to be more present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Although I'm like, I think I appreciate things, the little things more when I'm witnessing or watching like one of the shows. I like watching survival shows like Naked and Afraid and Alone. And then there's this one with dogs and their owners in the wild. and that makes me appreciate the little things like having easy accessible access to clean water. That's huge. And having a roof over my head and not having to worry about food or having to hunt my own food or worry about mosquitoes attacking me at night or hypothermia or sweating, like all of those things. That has me appreciate like the more basic things out of life. But I'm suspecting, when I have my baby, which is coming soon, I know I've heard a lot from parents in that, the baby is going to be experiencing a lot of new things in life and will be fascinated by like the things that you never even really noticed for a really long time. And I think becoming a parent will definitely help me appreciate those little things a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. Just because if not for anything other than
Yeah.
your baby will be interested in things and pull your attention to those things just from like engaging with them or being inquisitive or whatever else.
Yeah.
I am curious on another question. If you feel like fun is something that has social pinnings, right? By that I mean, do you feel like the amount of or the percent of time that you have fun alone compared to the percent of time you have fun with other people is really low? Because when I think about it, I'm like, almost always if I'm having fun, it's with people. Like it's hard for me to think of a time or a situation or instance where I'm like, I had so much fun, but I was just doing something by myself.
Yeah, I would say probably the majority of time is in a social interaction because that's more fun for me in my head. I'm trying to think of things I've done alone recently. I mean, I haven't done it recently, but I have traveled alone. But I guess not as well, I don't know. I'm like, what degree have I traveled alone versus with someone? That's hard to pinpoint. Yeah, that's hard to say. I feel like I can make my own fun. Um, and I feel like kids can do that easily, like be entertained by the smallest things. Although I'm like, does social interaction count if it's a dog? That's with another being, but not a human being. Because I have lots of fun with them and no other person is around. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I would count that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just thinking about it because I don't know how general it is, but the more I think about it, the more, even if I'm having a good time doing something by myself, I usually wouldn't bucket it in sort of the like stronger or higher levels of fun. So, for example, if I went on a hike by myself, like I think that would be nice. I think that would be
Yeah.
pleasurable. I would say that it was probably like fun to a degree,
Yeah.
but those higher levels of fun, at least for me, I can't think of a time, but like that was a solo experience, right? All the times that I think of like, whoa, that was really, really fun, also includes more people or like a social sort of component.
Yeah. Generally, I think that's usually the case, but I just did think of that time I was in Italy by myself and had a lot of fun exploring and meeting new people and riding on the gondola by myself and doing a lot of things. And I think maybe it goes back to that like novelty experience of having new experiences in general. But I would say, like, for the most part, probably most of my fun has been in a social gathering setting.
Maybe it's because for novelty, it's much easier to get more novelty in a social setting because you have other people introducing like
Yeah.
other stuff going on. You know, if you're just going on a hike by yourself, for example, like the amount of novelty you're likely to experience is lower just because like having people there adds a social context that sort of like what's the best way to put it? It's like a combinatorial thing, right? It's like the different pieces come together to make something else, whereas without a social component, like you're
Right.
less likely to run into new things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking of also some new things that you might try would be helpful to have someone more experienced or an expert in like skydiving. I did do that like over a decade ago with my brother and sister, which was fun, a good sibling bonding experience. But also I wasn't skydiving by myself. I had someone strapped to me and doing all the work, so I wasn't like in danger of killing myself or forgetting to pull the right cord or remembering what I had to do or anything like that. So that's a helpful experience. And then I think of scuba diving. That's definitely been a fun experience. And yeah, I mean, I could have taken a lesson by myself. I did it with my partner at the time, but we had trained people to kind of guide us and help us in those newer activities.
See, and I guess for me, those are still even social experiences. They're just a different category. Like you're still interacting with, you still have your like instructor or whoever, like sort of making some sort of dynamic between you, because I've definitely had a lot of fun with people I don't know, right? Like in whatever circumstances, like classes or just whatever else. But yeah, I just feel like that social layer is like a big enhancer for me. And it's the same thing even if I haven't traveled alone a ton, but even the amount that I've done, like the fun stuff that I did involved people for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we covered this topic pretty well. Were there any final thoughts you had before we wrap up?
Not really. Just that fun I think is something that it gets harder as we grow into adulthood to sort of like make space for. And really you can have a pretty productive and efficient life without it, but I don't know if you can have a fully like rounded out and fulfilled life without it. So looking for ways to inject it even at like low levels can really do a lot to just balance things out a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this week. We appreciate you. And if you appreciate us, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and help spread the happiness in the world. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and then go and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. If you check out in the description below, go to my website where you can get my free fast and easy guide to stress relief. Thanks again for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.